Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Hilltop Sports Report podcast. My name is Jumpin' Jack Carlson, your host, and this is episode 38 of the podcast featuring men's lacrosse. It's the 8th year head coach Lane Zierten as my very special guest on this episode, his third appearance on the show. So let's not waste any time. Let's hit the music and start the show.
Let's go Rams! Let's go Rams!
So as I mentioned in my intro, our first three-time guest here on the Hilltop Sports Report is Lane Zierten, known around the Cornell College campus as Coach Z. First of all, Coach Z, thank you for taking the time today.
Yeah, Jack, thanks so much for inviting me back. I've had a lot of fun doing it the last 2 years, so excited for a great show today, and it'll be good stuff.
Absolutely, and the first scrimmage of the 2025 men's lacrosse season is rapidly approaching on February 15th against St. Ambrose. Talk about the excitement that's growing within the program as the season opener rapidly approaches and a lot of potential on this team.
Yeah, I think you kind of nailed it there, Jack. It is that. I think our potential is as high as it's ever been, and not just me, but the guys included feel a lot of excitement around, what we can be this year, what we're going to be, what we can do. There's kind of some changes for us this year. We joined a new conference, so we're actually in the Northern Athletics Collegiate Conference, and it's a conference we're very familiar with. We've played against a lot of those schools in the past, and when I first got here, we were actually more or less in the same league with all of the NAC schools. It wasn't called the NAC at that time. But it was all the same, opponents that we have coming up this year. So we're familiar with these, teams and these schools, but we're really excited because it's a more challenging conference, more competitive, and it's going to give us the opportunity to earn more recognition, as individuals, but ultimately as a team. So I think that's created a lot of excitement for us in those changes and opportunities, and also just, the fact that we feel like we have a team to reckon with this year, and there's a lot of confidence around the group we have and what we've been doing.
And part of that team to be reckoned with includes 12 freshmen, your largest freshman class since coming here at Cornell College. So describe how important that is to you as a coach and what excitement it instills in you.
Yeah, it's incredible. It's the largest recruiting class that I've ever had. It actually was the largest class that the program's ever had. So those things are just kind of a real symbol of where we've come as a program, right? A lot of guys wanted to join us and what we're doing in our mission here. The beauty of having such a large freshman class is it just creates a lot of depth for us. And we're a program that is a little top heavy right now. We're really lucky to have the largest senior class we've had since the inaugural class that originally started the program. And so when you have those two things, all of a sudden we have the largest roster we've ever had. And so numbers is good. It helps us in practice a lot. And that's really a lot to do with these freshmen and their class being the largest we've had, and also really talented. And so a lot of guys who have a lot of talent, that creates a lot of depth, competition in practice. It's really made the team better, instantaneously since they walked through the door.
That's wonderful. And now going from the freshman end of the spectrum now to that veteran leadership on this 2025 season. Last year, a lot of juniors on the team and a couple of seniors. Majority of those players returned for this 2025 campaign. Describe the importance of their leadership and what they've shown to you throughout their years with the program.
Yeah, this senior class is a special one. Arguably the best season in program history was when they were freshmen. And we had a small senior class then, but a very talented one. And, these guys at the time were the largest class I had brought in and probably most talented. And so there's some parallels there, right, from that season to this one. And so we've kind of moved in the right direction there. And it's just really great because these seniors, by and large, every single one of them has started at some point. They've all played a lot of games. And so their experience on the field is going to really lead us and take us a long way. The thing that I think is most special about it is, when we have this really large freshman class, we have the senior class to balance it out and lead them, right? So freshmen can be super talented, but, they've never played a game before in college, and so they don't know what to expect. So to have these 9 seniors, 2 of them in their 5th year, right, who have been there and done that, know what it looks like, know what game day looks like, understand, how to compete, what practice should look like, those expectations, everything there. it really impacts the team from the top down, right? So we kind of got a nice sandwich going on with the roster, if you will. And on top of that, Jack, it's the right group of guys. It's an incredible group of young men, these 9 seniors. They all lead in their own right. And it's just, we're really lucky to have that type of leadership because that's unique. And you just don't get that every single year.
Yeah, and following up on that point, with your 2 fifth years, describe how it makes you feel as a coach to have those guys say not only to stick with the program for 4 years, but to come back for a 5th year and try and pass on some of their leadership onto what they've learned onto these freshmen and sophomores and juniors behind them.
Yeah, it's incredible. We've actually had, this is if I'm not mistaken, the 3rd year in a row we've had at least 1 5th year on the team. I think 1 3 years ago, 2 last year, however the math is there, and 2 this year. And I just think it means a lot to me, right? It means a lot to me that these guys want to come back to play for this program. It makes me feel like we're doing something right. And I emphasize the we're doing something right? Because it's a program effort, a team effort. And so those guys just, really want to be part of what we're doing again, which I think is incredible. So, and forgive me, that might have been a 2-part question. I can't remember. Was there a second part to it?
You answered it
completely.
Okay, great. Just passing on that knowledge onto the freshmen, which you have done. So now going position by position on this team, this is something that we've done in the first 2 times that you were on the podcast, and I think it works well just to go position by position, starting with the attackers. A lot of talent on that group, both on the upperclassmen side and also some younger players here who will make contributions this season. So take us through the attacker position and what you're expecting to see this year.
Yeah, so it's an exciting group this year. It goes with the theme of what we've been talking about, but we have 7, if you will, maybe 8 attackmen on the team this year. We have some guys that kind of play midfield and attack. They're a bit interchangeable. And, Jack, for us as a program, that's never been the case. And so to have, if you will, 2 lines of attackmen is incredible because it allows us to go full field in practice. And the bottom line is if you want to get good at something, do it, right? Like we love to call it practice and all this, and we have drills, but like at the end of the day, man, if you want to get really good at anything, just do it a lot. Well, being able to have the depth we have at attack has allowed us to be so much more effective in practice, and you can already see the impact it's had. To dive into it a little more specifically, Matt Norwood's back as a senior, and Matt has started a bunch of games in his time, played a ton of minutes. He's scored a bunch of goals year in and year out, the last 3 years. So just his comfortability being on the field and knowing what it looks like is going to mean a lot to us. Charlie Kovitz comes back. He's a sophomore, and he played attack for us every game last year. We're still figuring out if he's an attackman or a midi or both, and he knows that. He's going to bounce around for us and do whatever we need him to do. He's just a wonderful player, super smart with the ball in his stick, led the team in assists last year and points, as a freshman. So we're just lucky to have him. So he might be an attackman, but he was a year ago, and we'll see how that shakes out. And then after that, we're going to have some new guys in the role, right? Whether that be sophomores or juniors that have been kind of waiting their turn and working really hard, or, freshmen that are stepping up in a big way. And so it'll be really cool to see those guys that, haven't had the chance to start yet and are going to get that this year, how they're going to impact us. But we have great faith in the group overall. And it's just going to be a strong unit for us. So there's a great excitement around that position.
That's fantastic. And now from attackmen to the middies, describe what that position is going to look like this upcoming season in your 8th season on the Hilltop.
Yeah. So again, I feel like it's become the theme of the podcast here, right? Or really, I should say, of the team. We're going to run multiple midi lines. We haven't really ever been able to do that because we've been growing in size and depth. So this year we're going to run 2, if not 3 midfield lines, which is incredible. Lacrosse is really a running man's game. There's a physicality to it, but it's a finesse sport more than anything. And so to be able to rely on 8, 9, 10 guys at the midfield throughout the game, where they're keeping their legs fresh and subbing in and out, lacrosse substitutions for the midfield is kind of like hockey. You play for a minute or 2 and sub off and get fresh legs because it's a heck of a lot of running. So I think that's going to be the greatest difference this year compared to any years in the past, or advantage, if you will, that we have. And like I said, I mentioned a couple. I already mentioned, Charlie Kovitz we're figuring out if he's a midi or not, right? He can certainly play whatever position we ask him to. Ash Holscher's a senior, so coming back playing midfield for us. Landon Card, who is wrestling right now. He's a two-sport athlete, but we'll get the chance to have him back. And, he really impacted us a year ago. And so to have him back in the midfield and just his tenacity, the way he plays the game is infectious for the team. So those are some of the older guys, in that position. And then again, we're definitely going to see some new guys in that role, sophomores that have kind of, earned the opportunity now after waiting for a year, and definitely some first year guys that are going to step up. So it'll just be really fun to be able to run so many guys at the position and just be able to keep our legs fresh.
Now going on to the defensive side of the ball, we've done some offense, done some middies, and now logically we're going to go on to the defense. So describe what you're seeing out of that position so far in January and February as you prepare for the season and expectations for this upcoming year.
Yeah, so the majority of our seniors, I mentioned a few of them with the offensive side of the ball, but by and large, this class was really deep in defensemen. And so, Torrey Grace Collins has started every single game of his 3-year career, now to be 4th year. He's been elected as a captain by his teammates, just an incredible human being. Torrey is the program's all-time leader in caused turnovers for a single season. Last year, he tied his own record for caused turnovers in a single season. This is a difficult stat to measure in terms of ground balls. Last year, he had 102 ground balls. I'm 99% confident that is the most ground balls ever in a season by a player who's not a face-off man. So just really unique to be able to do that. And it's actually more than some of the years for our face-off men. So just a tremendous player and wonderful young man. He's going to kind of lead that defensive core along with our goalie, who we'll touch on in a bit. But more than just Torrey, Ben Bach, Zach Arnold have both started and played in a bunch of games in their career. And then Ben Schwartz is a junior coming back. And he's been a starter for us now for, the last couple years at 2 different positions. So we've got a lot of experience with that defensive unit. And that's really led by those older guys on the team. So that's a pretty cool thing to have.
That's fantastic. And now on to one of the more specialized positions in the sport of lacrosse, long stick midfielders. So describe what you're going to see out of that position this year.
Yeah, so we've got a handful of guys on the team right now playing LSM. They're all really competing their butts off in practice for the starting job. If not, in lacrosse, you really want to run 2 LSMs in a game. It's probably the most running in the sport. They sprint on the field to play defense from the substitution box. And as soon as we get the ball, they sprint right off the field. And so they're doing a 40 to 50-yard sprint just to get on the field. The shot clock's 80 seconds. So you transition less than every minute and a half. I mean, it's constant. So you really want to run 2. If you're lucky, you run 3. Right now we have all the faith and confidence in the world in Alex Wallace. He's a senior. He has played a ton, in the last couple years as a sophomore and junior. And he's really just had a heck of a preseason, fall and preseason. And he's really showing, that he's come into himself and as being a senior and has, leading that position. And then the other 3 guys, they're all freshmen. So it's fun. They're competing. And I look forward to figuring out, kind of who really asserts themselves as the season gets here, with games. And then certainly as we get into games, because all those guys are going to have an opportunity. So just again, along that same theme, a lot of depth there, led by an older guy, and then young guys kind of chomping at the bit to get their chance.
That's fantastic. And part of the benefit of having such a large roster and a lot of freshmen is to have that competitiveness in each of these position groups. Yeah. Now going on to the face-off position, lots of competition in that position group again this year. So describe what you're going to see there.
I feel like a broken record, right, Jack? But excuse me. So Ash Holscher is a senior. Yeah, I mentioned him with the midfield group. Ash is going to kind of play in 2 roles for us this year. He's taken a lot of face-offs in his time. So really, Ash has been a face-off man for us by and large. And in lacrosse, a lot of programs have what they call FOGO, face-off, get-off. And that's kind of their job. They face off, they get us the ball, they get off the field. Ash is going to do 2 things for us. And face-off, hopefully get us the ball a lot, which we think he will. And then play offense for us at times. The really nice part is we have 3 face-off men, 3 freshmen that are face-off men, so those guys are going to be able to help out. In years past, we've leaned on Ash so much. And it's, believe it or not, it's an exhausting position. It's very much like a wrestling match. It's a really competitive, 15 seconds grinding, trying to win the ball. You're trying to outmuscle your opponent. It's just kind of like athlete on athlete, one-on-one, who's stronger, who's quicker. And so that's kind of that parallel to wrestling. Hopefully no disrespect to my wrestlers if they, right? But you do it 25 times a game, 30 times a game if you're the only guy on your team. And so we're really lucky this year. We're going to be able to cycle those guys through. And the freshmen are good. All three of them are good. They all are unique in their own way. So that's going to be able to relieve some of the I don't want to say pressure, but exhaustion of Ash, and then allow him to help us on the offensive side because he's really talented there.
Absolutely. And now to the final position that's near and dear to your heart. You played goalie in college. Yeah. So now the goalie's position here at Cornell College this upcoming season, Thomas Cook, who's been a mainstay in the net throughout the past couple of years with the Rams. Describe what he means and then the position at large this upcoming year.
Yeah, Jack, so it's good you kind of preface it there. The guys like to tease me that I show favoritism to the goalies, and then I tell them, what? Absolutely, of course I do, right? No, I do. I love my goalies. I believe in my heart it's one of, if not the hardest job in all of sports on game day. Goalies can receive a lot of credit and praise, and man, can a lot of blame fall on their shoulders, if you're an outsider looking in. We do not take for granted for a second the young man that we have in Thomas Cook. I mean, he is a tremendous human being. I think, believe it or not, it's hard to believe. I think he's a better person than he even is lacrosse player. He's been a captain now 3 years. His peers, they look up to him, they admire him, they cherish what he does for him in the goal, and I think they just really respect who he is as a person. I've said it before. I mean, Thomas gives us faith that we can win all 17 games. And every single day we step on that field for a game, I think myself, the coaching staff, his teammates, everybody knows we got a shot. We got a shot because, he's the best at what he does. I believe in my heart that he's one of the best in the country. I'm going to fight my butt off to get him that recognition. But, and it's not totally just my opinion. He's been first team all conference the last 2 years, pretty much almost unanimously. It's really no debate. His numbers speak for themselves. So we're lucky to have him, and we're going to miss the heck out of him when he leaves. On that note, our next guy in line is Nathan Dively, and Nate's looked tremendous this year in practice. And I mean, man, it's sometimes I'm going like, oh boy, like, is Nate? I think he's pushing Thomas right now for the starting job, and so we just have a lot of faith, in the future with Nathan, and I hope not, because,
knocking on wood.
Right. But if we would need him, we know it'd be no drop off. I mean, just a tremendous goalie. Feel really, really lucky to have him. So the group is just, the two of them are phenomenal. They both save the ball as well as many that I've coached, if not better than any of them. And so it's really good to have that strength in such an important position.
That's fantastic. And thank you, Coach, for going position by position here on this 2025 Cornell Rams lacrosse roster. And now from the roster to the coaching staff. Obviously, you can't do it alone. You have valuable support from your assistants. So Peter Plow, Kurt Kruk, and Jaden DeFields round out that assistant staff this upcoming year. Describe what those three do on the day-to-day basis and also how much you value their contributions.
Yeah, I feel so lucky to have the staff I do, especially here in Mount Vernon, Iowa, where lacrosse is just, not the most popular sport in this area of the country. So Coach Kroc has been with the program for all 8 years that I've been here. He's really taken on a bigger role the last 2 years, being here full time, day in and day out, helping with recruiting. And ultimately what he does in practices and game day and that kind of thing is he's our offensive coordinator. So I take on the defense by and large. That's kind of my goalie background and knowledge there. He's really the offensive coordinator. And he just comes to us with a wealth of knowledge. He's got probably the most extensive, amount of years on the coaching staff in terms of playing, and coaching. So he played college back in from 1988 to 92. He'd probably yell at me for dating him there, but and then he started coaching after, and he was a teacher and a coach in Delaware for a long time. So really, and he's from out there in the Northeast in Delaware. So he was in the Mecca of lacrosse his IQ for the game is, beyond many that I've talked to. So, and I think he's a fan favorite with the guys, as the assistant coaches can be, right? The guys oftentimes love the assistants, and, unfortunately, Jack, sometimes I have to play the role of disciplinary, right? So that's Coach Croc, and he's just helped us so much. And his consistency being here for the last couple of years as our offensive coordinator has been good for the guys because, the returners know the offense. They don't need to learn a new offense year in and year out. So that's good. Coach Plow joined us 4 years ago. He helps me with the defense. And he's another one who's, he was playing the game in the 70s. So, he's got great knowledge there and helps me a lot. If I'm working with the goalies one-on-one, he'll take the defensemen and LSMs, those guys, and do footwork with them or talk about concepts or, whatever it might be. So he really helps me tremendously with the defense. And then Coach DeFields is the young man on staff now, which is great for me because I'm finally not the youngest guy. And he just joined us last year and really has taken on a bigger role this year. He helps Coach Croc with the offense. He's our face-off coach, so he's the primary face-off coach. I really trust him. I almost to the point where I turn my back on him. I know he's doing a great job with those guys. He's earned that right. And then he really helps us a lot with kind of as a transition coordinator. And funny enough, a really big role for coaches on game day in lacrosse is to run the substitution box. So that's something he's going to take on for us this year. And he's just, even in practice, done a really great job with it. So, Jack, we're super lucky, man. It's unlike most programs in this area to have 4 coaches. So I really appreciate those guys and being here and the time and effort they give us because they work a heck of a lot more than we're able to, compensate them for. And I just, so they're really committing, their heart to the program because they love the sport and the guys. And so we're pretty lucky.
That's so wonderful to hear, and just a testament to the program that you have built here on the Hilltop. And now going into the student support staff that you have, because any program here on campus relies on those student athletes not only to go out there and play the game, but also contribute behind the scenes. Eamon Garten and JoJo Dufek are your 2 support staff student assistants this upcoming year. Describe their impacts and what they do to help the program.
Yeah, so Eamon's really of kind of like our social media coordinator. I do some of the social media stuff, but he's more like the kind of the cool end of the social media, right? Doing hype videos or just videos with the guys, getting off the bus when we're on road trips. We're going to hopefully add a few more components to that this year, maybe like some post-game interviews, that kind of thing. So that's really kind of become his role, really more of that digital media, social media coordinator, if you will. JoJo is, she's the one who like keeps the whole thing glued together, man, right? Like, she's, making sure we have food on away trips. So she helps us out, getting lunch or dinner or calling ahead to places. Hey, can you serve 35 people, right? If we're going to go to Chipotle, we don't want to bombard them, So she's doing that, getting uniforms ready on game day. Sometimes, filming it for us if we need her to. Not always. That's, normally I wouldn't want her to do that, but if she has to. So just a lot of those behind the scenes things. She does so much more for the program than most realize. And so JoJo's new this year, so she's stepping into this role for the first time. But the first time I talked to her, I knew she would do a great job. And so she helped a little in the fall, kind of got her feet wet. And then here in a few weeks, when we really hit the ground running, she's gonna be into it, full on. So super lucky to have her. And you're right, we can't do it without any of them. For Eamon to be able to put our image and our brand out there to show people, how great this program is and how much it's grown and where we've come. For JoJo to make sure we have all the odds and ends buttoned up on game day, right? Because I'm running around like a chicken with his head cut off. Those 2 things, they're so valuable and we couldn't do it without them. So we really appreciate those 2 for all the time that they give us.
That's so wonderful. And thank you for speaking to that and highlighting some of those people who might not get the recognition on a day-to-day basis and what they bring to the program. So one more question for you here before we go into talking about the season. So this is going a little bit off of the athletics part of things into your family life. So recently, this past year, you and your wife Courtney welcomed your first child. So describe the emotions of last year, and I can imagine there have been some sleepless nights, but worth it all the same.
Yeah, God. I try to do this part without crying, Jack. The guys know I'm a bit of an emotional guy. August 29th of 2024 is it's, the most special day of my life, right? That was the day that Cirilla Josephine Zierten was born. She's absolutely beautiful. I love her beyond anything I can describe, and I really appreciate you bringing it up. Any chance I get to talk about her is one I cherish. So she just turned 5 months old last week, which was just like a really cool moment. And I don't know where the time's gone. Definitely some sleepless nights. I can't take all the credit, or I should say sleeplessness there. My wife, Courtney, is the person I admire more than anybody in the world. I'm lucky. She was actually hired to be the head athletic trainer here at Cornell this last summer, right before Cirilla joined the world. And I just, she teaches here as well. I don't know how she does everything she does with teaching and being our head athletic trainer, and also being Cirilla's mom. And I just feel really lucky to have her, because I know there's no way that I could be a parent alone and without her and her help. And so she's really the one getting up in the night with the baby more so than me, but I try to help when I can, Jack. But it is, those two women are they're everything to me. And Cirilla has just given me such a great new perspective on life. And I don't know if I've ever cherished anything in my life as much as I do becoming a father. It's an incredible feeling. So I wish that upon everyone, at least those who want it. I think it's one of the most special things you can do. And I just I hope things slow down, because her life is already going too fast. So thanks so much for asking, Jack, and letting me just touch base on those two incredible people in my life.
That's fantastic and so heartwarming to hear that story. Thank you for sharing. And now going into the athletics realm one final time before we wrap up this podcast. So the first scrimmage, February 15th against St. Ambrose, and then the first game of the season coming up a week after the fact against Carroll, and that's a road game. And you've mentioned before we started recording that you like the schedule that you've put together, and it's going to challenge this Rams team. So expectations, give them to us about what you have for the scrimmage and the season opener, and just your excitement for the season and the schedule ahead.
Yeah, Jack. Well, in the best coach's speech possible, I won't talk about wins and losses very much, right? We're 0-0 right now, right? So we take it one game at a time. But it's a challenging schedule for us, and the group that we have this year has earned the right to have that challenging schedule. They're all the hard work and time and effort that the senior class has put in, the juniors behind them, so on and so forth, what the freshmen bring. This group has earned the right to have this great schedule. And so we play 3 CCIW schools this year, which is the most we've ever played. They're one of the most competitive, if not most talented conferences in lacrosse in the Midwest, certainly in our region. And so to have the opportunity to play, almost half of that league is really cool. And that's going to give us great perspective, on where we stack up, amongst the rest of these teams that are really quality in our area. And then just with being in the NAC and that opportunity to compete against some of the teams, like Aurora, Lake Forest, Dubuque, and Concordia, Wisconsin, that have kind of been that upper echelon of the Midwest here in, the last handful of years. So the chance to go compete against them, year in and year out, especially this year with the group we have, is one we're super excited about. So in terms of expectations, my expectation is that, we're going to compete, right? We're going to compete more than we ever have, and we're going to have a lot of fun doing it. Whatever that lands us, we'll look back in May and reevaluate and take a moment to breathe and see where it all brought us. So sorry to give you such a coach's answer, but it is true. Right now, we really want to take it one day at a time. The scrimmage is going to give us a chance to learn a lot about who we are against someone else. And then hopefully everything we learn there is going to help us on the 22nd and moving forward. So just one week, one game, one day at a time right now. But it's going to be a really fun year. And I think this group can put a lot of it together.
That's a fantastic philosophy. And we look forward to seeing you on the sidelines and the Rams compete this upcoming 2025 season. Thank you so much for taking the time today.
Thanks so much, Jack. I always really have a blast being on here. I hope I'm lucky enough to make it 4 for 4 next year and, on your way out.
Yeah, well, it'll be my last year, so you got a good word in early. So our first 3-time guest, Coach Lane Zierten, Coach C, here on the Hilltop. Thank you so much for taking the time, and best of luck to the Rams this upcoming season, 2025. As I mentioned a couple of times throughout this episode the scrimmage on February 15th against St. Ambrose, then the season opener, regular season opener, February 22nd at Carroll. The Rams will be home not long after that with lots of home matches throughout the month of March. My name is Jumpin' Jack Carlson, thanking you so much for taking the time on this episode. I'll be back next week with a preview of women's lacrosse. Meg Lewis, the senior from Santa Fe, New Mexico, will be my very special guest. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time.
Let's go Rams! Let's go Rams!